We asked the question, when they broke the 21-game losing streak, does that mean they can fire Pedro now?
Yes.
That was the first question we had as we talked about it. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's the entirety of the problem, that now that Pedro's gone, the world is a better place. But the fact of the matter is the man leaves with an 89 and 190 record in his 2 years overseeing the White Sox. That is a .317 winning percentage, Mr. Davis.
Lost 101 games last year. He finishes 101 games under 500 as the White Sox manager. One of the more unsuccessful, unpopular managers in White Sox history. Now he's gone.
And I will say he finishes with that record as a Major League Baseball manager. There is no team lining up to try Pedro out after what happened in Chicago the last 2 years. Again, not entirely his fault.
Not all his fault, but
part
that's
of the problem.
That's a true statement and a fair projection. Nobody wanted any part of Terry Bevington after he left Chicago managing the White Sox, and I think that is as apt of a comparison as you could make. The Bevington era, the Pedro Grifol error. I think that was a mistake in giving him the job because he was a guy that the Royals passed over and the White Sox hired.
Yep.
So he came here with a lot of designs on how to make the Sox into a Chicago version of the Royals. Didn't work. He talked tough and didn't deliver. So he did not have talent. Injuries were an issue, but Pedro Grifol never overcame the credibility deficit. When he started, it went south, and it never really stopped going in that direction.
He was asked recently by MLB.com if he thought he was a good manager. And he said, I think I am. I really do. And I think managing is motivating people to play and work hard every single day. I think managing is preparing and making good decisions and serving people and including people. It's not up to me to decide. I don't make decisions on whether I'm a good manager or not. That's for other people to decide. I think that decision was made today on the South Side.
It was made today on the South Side in terms of being a formal announcement. You have to imagine this was discussed during the private meeting reported last week by Bob Nightingale. Jerry Reinsdorf, Chris Getz, Pedro Grifol last Wednesday met behind closed doors, a private meeting that went public. And this was maybe we talked at the beginning of the week when they ended the losing streak, they would be relieved and then also be free to fire Pedro Grifol. I'm not sure the logic in that, but I think they were waiting for that signal or that cue, and now they took advantage of the off day. My sense would be, did they name the statement came quickly. It just happened about 5 minutes ago. Yeah. Charlie Montoyo, is he going to be the interim manager?
It doesn't say. I can't imagine who else, David. I just can't. We're getting a lot of texts from people saying Tony La Russa is going to be the interim. That's funny, but that's not going to happen. So we'll see what goes on.
I can't imagine that would happen.
Let me ask you this question.
Can't imagine that would happen.
Dustin, feel free to jump in yourself here. Is this a good thing or a bad thing for the Cubs entering a Cubs series tomorrow on the South Side? Good news for the Cubs.
I think it's bad. I think it's bad news for the Cubs.
Bad news.
I think
Pedro's not there to lose.
I think there's still a talent deficit that the Cubs can exploit, and I think they still should win both games.
Yes.
But if you were ever going to play the White Sox, it would be on a night you don't want to do it, on a night where this inferior talent rises to the occasion because they're so happy and relieved the manager is gone, or they're changing managers and they get that bounce from just change for the sake of change. That's what this is. They don't have any better talent tomorrow night against Jameson Taillon and the Cubs.
They got a different voice.
They might be locked in.
Yeah.
And a new voice is what we've been calling for, and a new voice is what they need. So maybe it's a new voice that they respond to. Bad news for the Cubs, who need to win every game they should win down the stretch.
Dustin, what do you think? Good news, bad news?
Well, if the game was tonight, I think what David just said would carry a little bit more weight, not because David said it, but I could see like that immediate reaction. I feel like by the time they get to that game, it's going to, and they're going to be peppered with questions about it, which all, like when they open up that clubhouse on Friday, Bruce is going to be there with his microphone asking everybody about this like he should be. And I think they're going to be sick of answering questions about it. So,
Pedro on Inside the Clubhouse Saturday morning?
Maybe so. That would be great. I don't know what he'll have to say. I don't know what he can say for himself. He has been somebody that has been...
All he can say is goodbye.
All he can say is goodbye. I don't know what he would point to as just I would hope that he goes out with the professionalism that you want to see when somebody gets fired from a job like this. Managers are hired to be fired. This had to happen. The White Sox were worse than anybody imagined. So let's spin ahead. Gosh, can we at least look ahead? Because this is hopeful. This provides a little bit of hope. The White Sox did what they needed to do. So now, what does your short list look like if you are Chris Getz, if you're Jerry Reinsdorf, and you're not making money an option, which I know is people roll their eyes and say, how can that be the case? It's the White Sox. But what would be your short list for potential managers to replace Grifol?
Well, they've already been looking at this. They already have a short list together. They already know who they want to interview. I don't think they need to jump with the interim. I think they need to finish the season and try to get a new manager bounce that somehow will keep them from being the worst team in baseball history. That's the only reason you're doing this now, is that you got a little bit of a run here where maybe if you're bringing someone up, be nice to have a manager that you know is part of the organization.
So you want to hire a permanent replacement now?
No.
You want an interim now?
I think I need an interim.
Okay, interim.
This is too sudden for me, but I have the list together of who I know is going to be available. And if I'm waiting on the guy in Miami, I got to wait till the year ends.
Well, let's also be
point.
clear then, the manager who you appoint as the interim manager, if he does get what you described as the bounce to finish the season and avoid making history,
then he's in the mix.
He's got to be in the mix.
No question.
Would that be a mistake, though, to get somebody who's been part of the losing and then you elevate somebody who's been part of the losing?
If you elevate someone, let's say Charlie Montoya, that would probably be the guy, and you see a bounce from that, then you interview him and talk to him too. I don't know that he's their guy. I don't know that they want to do this. I think they want to wait, but they have fired Pedro, so they need a new manager. And any lift you get will be taken in consideration when you're trying to figure out what you do moving forward.
Charlie Montoya managed 4 seasons with the Toronto Blue Jays. Overall record was 236, 236, and even 500. He did get to the postseason in 2020, the abbreviated 2020 season. Lost both games there to the Rays.
If he gets to 500, I mean, if he, the rest of the game,
if the Sox just half their games remaining, he would be back.
Then I mean, I don't know how you
he would be back. I don't know. What's interesting too is will they hire and how will they handle, or what will the new manager's role, the interim manager's role, be in deciding the future of of Garrett Crochet? What will they do after tomorrow night?
I think, is
this part of a broader plan?
I wish.
We're firing the manager. We're shutting down Crochet. We're bringing up Colson Montgomery. Let's go.
I like your attitude about it. I don't believe that's going to happen.
Well, if you're going to have an organizational metamorphosis on a day off you're taking advantage of, and here come the Cubs, and you got another day off on Sunday, I think you got to look at this big picture. And big picture, new manager, decision on Crochet. Let's see the kid. That's what I would do.
I think they knew they had to fire this guy. I think it was obvious and apparent to everyone, and there were rumors they were thinking about it. The fact that they won a game helps you to not throw a manager into the middle of this historical losing streak.
Right.
So the minute he won the game, our first question, do they fire the manager? Yeah, the answer is yes. You finish the series, you come home, hey, nice to see you again. By the way, why don't you pack your stuff?
Had they won Sunday, I'm not sure he would have gotten on the plane to Oakland.
Right.
I think that may be the way you look at it.
Right.
Before we get to the callers, and people are weighing in, 312-644-6767. Mully, here's one working short list potentially. You mentioned Skip Schumacher.
Sure.
He's out of contract in Miami, so I think he's a guy, because of his connection, to Tony La Russa.
That's right.
Makes him a viable candidate. Number 2, you got to make the phone call to Terry Francona. You've got to see if he's interested.
I agree.
You got to see if he's healthy enough. You got to see what his price tag would be, but I'd be willing to pay it if he wants to come back. The third one is part of the organization already. Patrick Leland is the manager down in Kannapolis.
Okay.
He's got good bloodlines, the connection to the family, and Jerry Reinsdorf makes him, I think, somebody you can't dismiss.
Would you bring him up now? Is that what you're saying? Would he be the interim?
I think I'd have a conversation. I would at least discuss that, because I don't know if I want to expose him to this kind of
I hope you already, if you're going to do it, I hope you already made the call.
If you're going to do it, I hope you did make the call. But I think he might be. I'm looking.
Sergio Santos is in Double-A. They've had a wonderful run in Double-A. If you are already working with and developing these young players, Could a guy like that move into the interim
The
job?
heck of a leap. First year as a manager.
Big leap.
Begins it in minor leagues and ends it in the majors.
Would it shock you, though, with the White Sox?
It wouldn't shock me. And I think A.J. Pierzynski's also on that list because of where there's smoke, there's fire. I would love to put our guy Ozzie on it. I just don't know if that's realistic.
Well, that's what I do, but,
Well, let's face it, that's what we both would do.
Yeah, I agree.
I just don't think that
he's our guy.
Given what the history is and given where the relationship is, maybe that's not realistic. But that would be the no-brainer to me. Give him another chance. I don't know if he would take the job. I think he would take the job.
312-644-6767. Long live Pedro Grifol. But we need a new Pedro Grifol.
Pedro Grifol, that's
the king is gone. The king is dead. Long live the king.
And when you write Pedro Grifol in your
king?
White Sox history book, make sure there's 21 L's at the end of his name.
And then scratch a line through it, because that's over.